everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm August Biniaz. I'm joined by my wonderful, 𝗖𝗽𝗶𝗁 Benesocky. Welcome, Ava.
Thank you, August. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We have a fantastic webinar. Today, we're joined by Abel Pacheco. Today, we're going to discuss Abel's journey in multifamily investing and discuss the key components of multifamily investing. So right before we start, Abel, I'm just going to say a little bit about yourself here. Abel and his wife have been investing in real estate since 2008. Abel has invested in 93 million of commercial real estate and 800 plus doors across 5 multifamily apartment communities as an active and passive investor. He is a principal GP in 400 plus doors and developing a Class A multifamily round-up project. Abel has a verifiable 10x track record, growing acquisitions 5 million to 57 million from 2010 to 2016 in the tech world. Wow. Awesome. He brings 20 years of corporate and entrepreneurial experience and 13 years in IT. He has also helped grow Rackspace from, listen to this, 100 million to over $1 billion. Wow. In the professional world, he has 20 years of corporate and entrepreneurial experience. And his first entrepreneurial experience was launching a 60+ person record-breaking revenue-generated office for Kuto Vector Marketing while taking on a full-time course load in college.
Great, awesome. Welcome, Abel.
And he's currently the president of the 5T Commercial Real Estate. So welcome, Abel.
Awesome. Yeah, welcome, Abel.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the warm introduction as well. And anytime you hear those bullets, you go, God, is that really me? But, you know, I also go, I'm old. I've been around a lot of years to accomplish a few things.
Yeah, that's great.
You're very wise. You're wise and you have a lot of experience.
Yeah, no, we've definitely noticed you on LinkedIn and other platforms where there's a...
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes?
Where are you guys based from?
Sorry, this is it's a recording show. Put all your questions in the question bar and we'll get to you, Samuel. Please.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So yeah, as I was saying, is we've noticed you a lot on a lot of different platforms, podcasts, YouTube channels. So your face is becoming very familiar. So we're glad to have internet kind of met you, and glad looking forward to hearing about you and adding some value to our investors about from your background and your journey.
Yeah, I keep seeing them everywhere.
Yeah, so if maybe we can start right off if you want, Ava. And
so Abel, why don't we start off by you telling us about your start in multifamily investing? You have done extremely well, going from 8 to 800 doors, and we'd love to hear about your journey.
Sure. Thank you very much again for having me. I'm originally from Corpus Christi, Texas. So I grew up near the beach, and then moved for college to San Antonio, Texas. So if you're familiar with the Alamo or Riverwalk here in San Antonio, Texas native, married, kids, 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. So me and my wife have been married for a number of years, 12 plus years, and waited a little while. So we finally have our 2 little ones running around. And yeah, you have those bullets that we read just from the professional world, IT tech guy. I've been a sales Johnny for a lot of years, and then just learned a bunch of tech stuff throughout the years. Invested in real estate since 2008. So I'm in most of those are in San Antonio, Texas, and just single family, really realized there was a grind that I had to get out of. For me personally, was positioning to commercial real estate. So syndications is the way we've ended up going to 800 plus stores. I think we're at 900 now, and I think we've done about 500 as an active. We just closed on a deal last week, so we're super excited.
Congratulations.
And yeah, thank you. And we're on basically our 7th active deal, our 7th deal that we've kicked off in the commercial real estate side of the house. And I just attribute a lot to, took a lot of education, got a lot of really great mentors, a lot of great coaches, and then take a lot of action. Uncomfortable as it is, a lot of it is unnerving, a little fear baked into it, a lot of anxiety, stress, worry, call it whatever you want to, and then overcoming some of those obstacles to take the next step. I don't I don't know everything there is to know about commercial real estate. There's no possible way, even if I think if I was doing this for the next 30 years, I would still say there's so much to learn. But what's amazing about the commercial side is like, I didn't do those 900 doors on my own. I didn't do this development project on my own. Like, I have a lot of really great partners that we've all worked together. And as a team, we've been able to acquire, much more than I ever imagined, in a very short period of time. And so that's a little bit about me and my background so far. And, just we can dig in wherever you'd like to.
For sure. No, great. And I mean, not to discredit it in any way or minimize, but Texas has been a great place to invest in. The timing has been great. So that timing and the geography location that you were in was also very helpful to your journey.
Extremely. Like, this is my backyard. So like I can drive 800 of those doors in about 45 minutes in any different direction. So like on a day, I could check them all out if I really wanted to. And that's where I grew up. So I was very blessed with having a good market in my backyard.
Awesome. And as you mentioned about single family and then moving on to multifamily, sorry, I know you've got a bunch of questions, Ava, jumping in, but I don't want to lose my track of thought here. But as you mentioned about single family, moving on to multifamily, kind of tell us about that journey. And you talked about fear and anxiety that exists, looking at, being used to doing fix and flips on a single family. I'm not saying that you did, but I'm just assuming, and then looking at a 100-unit apartment building where there is multi-tenanted, there's property management involved, there's taxes, fees, bunch of different items. So tell me how that transition works. How do you work around the anxiety that exists, the fear of looking at such a great asset and the concept of syndicating that asset?
Yeah, well, a couple things. So I did do flips. I did do buy and hold. The first 5 of my properties were technically just buy and hold. I buy them, 2008, put a couple bucks down. In US, we have first time homeowners. So FHA, I think I put like $3,000 down on my first house. We lived there. And instead of selling it, I moved to the next one and rented out the first. And every time we buy another property, I would use this FHA kind of, this is my house, my primary residence, buy a new one, rent the one behind me, buy a new one, rent the one behind me. So I never got rid of my equity in it. It meant it was like a forced savings mechanism, which really helped me transition to commercial real estate, because every time I had a property that I rented, there was equity in it, cash flow positive, and I got the experience of, being a landlord. And then it helped me a little bit later down the road, because when I was trying to transition, I had a little bit of cash flow. I could refinance some of these properties. Had a little bit of, I sold a couple, had some money in the bank, in cash reserves, and kind of go do the next one. But the fear, the anxiety, the kind of things, it stumped me. It stopped me from moving forward and buying apartment buildings for 10 years. Mm-hmm. So if there's anybody that's listening that just kind of has the fear, it's like, yes, I felt it. I read many investors that I talked to read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I did the same. Robert Kiyosaki book, Purple and Yellow book. The second book I read was like immediately after the ABCs of real estate investing. It's Ken McElroy, another Purple and Yellow book, a trusted advisor book. And so I read it, and I was thinking ABCs of real estate. Oh, this is going to show me how to buy a house. Well, really, they showed you how to buy an apartment building, and they walk through the numbers, tell you about the team, tell you about the market. Here's how to analyze. Here's how to put an offer on a property. Here's how to raise capital, like start to finish. It's a really good, solid read. And I then, this was 26, I read that book, and I get into a fearful state and say, there's no way you can do that. Abel, you're like a young kid. You don't have any money. There's no way you can raise any capital. Get real is the lie that I told myself. And that's when I bought the first single family house instead of an apartment complex. So I bought those houses over and over and over again for 10 years. And, the internal barrier was myself getting out of my own head, my own limiting belief, the own factor that, I can do that. And it took me like coaches, it took me mentors, it took me a lot of education. I dropped a lot of, good money and attending a bunch of conferences and seminars and things like that to where I could finally say like, yes, like you can do this. And that, and turned into a passive investor. I got in, one deal. I moved 401k to an IRA. I did the second deal, the same one, 401k to an IRA. So we got into 400 doors passively. My wife got into a third deal on her own, 282 doors. And so we're like, we're both investing. It's really cool. We could rap about it and have fun because she would help. You know, she's my strategy. She's my strategy partner, 100%. She helps me with like the really big decisions and I'm like an executor. So anyways, we go do this and we're like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take 50K. Every 5 years, it'll double. It'll turn into 100. And if I can plant as many of these 50K seeds, in 5 years, it'll be 100. In 10 years, it'll be 200. In 15 years, it'll be 400. In 20 years, we're close to retire. It'll be like $800,000. And that's one seed.
Just to jump in, this is passively you're discussing.
This is passive. This is my passive mindset to kind of get, you know, in the game, right? At first it was like, I didn't even know if I could put 50K down on an apartment complex. I didn't know much about it. I didn't know how to do it, but you know, we took a little bit of education, talked to a mentor, how to coach, kind of push you through that. And I go, okay, we can do this. And I'm looking at my wife, you know, we're kitchen table kind of conversation. And she's like, well, I mean, if we lose it all, because that was literally was my fear. Oh, what happens if we lose it all? It's like 50,000. It's a big chunk of money. US dollars for me. And so she goes, you know what, if we lose it, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? We still got to go to work tomorrow, one way or the other. We're still going to have to go to work, you know, when you're 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, if something doesn't change. So I'm looking at her like, absolutely, it's time to take the plunge. And she was a great guide along for me and kind of helping me through that too. And so she's a big coach and mentor for me. And then, you know, that kind of ensued more education. I talked to a bunch of people that, you know, I was excited about it and get enthusiastic about this stuff. And so people naturally kind of say, well, how did you do that? How did you get into 400 doors? And I explained it and they go, well, can you tell me when your next deal is? And I go, well, I don't have any deals. I'm invested passively. Like I'm in someone else's deal. And I don't think, you know, unless you're really in the world, you don't really understand general partner, limited partner, syndication, active, sponsor, KP, principal. What's all these terms? So they look to me and they're like, well, can you just tell me when your next deal is? Right. The question comes again and I go, I can absolutely tell you. And what happened was I showed somebody my first deal. I showed somebody my second deal. These are deals that I was in passively. I shared it with them. They wanted to know. I helped answer questions. I wasn't thinking about raising capital, but technically that's what I was doing. I was helping people understand about these investments, friends, family, coworkers, people I know, like, trust. They know, like, trusted me. You heard my professional background. So I had a lot of people that said, oh, you had some success here. You're in real estate. I know you've been doing that for a lot of years. You're going to have success in your next run. Can you share with me? Like, I don't want to miss out on your next run. And that was kind of how it started. And then I got invited on the first deal and the second deal and the third deal and the fourth deal, just kind of fifth deal, sixth deal, like keep going. So let me pause. But that was my switch, the conversion from single family to commercial.
That's incredible journey, because your journey was brick by brick. And at some point it became a situation where people are approaching you, asking questions from you, where it created that need that for you to say, hey, I'm having people contact me because I'm a passive investor. Let me think about possibly being involved on the active side and on the sponsorship side. So that's incredible.
And what a cool way to pay it forward to people. Now you literally stop them from holding back. You're like, hey, listen, and they see your success and they want to jump right into it. I love that.
Yeah, and a quick thing to add to that part is there's risk in all investments. Doesn't matter how safe it is, there's risk involved in all investments. But the great thing about syndication and real estate investment is that there is something tangible. There is a cash flowing asset in most cases backing up that investment. You know, obviously there's risk because you have cities like Detroit where, you know, it had a population loss and job loss, so things could happen. You also have natural disasters that could take place. But in investing in a syndication where, you know, that 50K you've invested is backed by a real estate asset, is, you know, it brings that risk amount definitely down. So I wanted to mention that. And yeah, no, it's great to hear that part. So if you like, maybe. And I think we had a question related to the passive component.
We were discussing before this that it's very common to see. It's very common to see sponsors that started out as passive investors.
Yeah, it's
and
common.
Then the trickle effect happens, and they start kind of helping everybody.
Yeah, because if you're in the process from being a passive investor, you see what the sponsor is doing. You notice what are the things that they're not doing perfectly. So if you're planning to be a sponsor is, hey, it's like trying to start a company where you've never worked in that trade. You want to start a roofing company, but you never worked as a roofer before. You kind of don't understand the lingos, how it works, how to take care of your clients, and how the process works. So it's cool to hear you being on that passive side initially.
Yeah, I recommend this exactly. Like, people that are trying to be active, be general partner, be principal, and land their first deal to close it. My first question is, have you invested passively? And many times the answer is no. And it absolutely can be done. I know a lot of partners, general partner principals, that have never been passive investors. It can be done. The way I think about it, though, is it's kind of like climbing a mountain. If I'm going to go from here to the, from the base to the peak of that mountain, I can look up that mountain and I see there's multiple paths to get to the top. If I, climb with the team, I've got gear and it's a little slower, and I may take this route that kind of goes around it from left to right at a lower degree vertical, climb. And then there's some others that go, I can get up that thing free climbing it. I don't need a rope. I don't need any of that. And they literally, go up the mountain, right? Climbing it and scaling, and they're like up in the middle of the air, and they reach the top. They're going to do it much more quickly, with much more less gear. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I know free climbing a mountain takes way more training, way more practice, way more experience. Like, you better have your P's and Q's to order, because if not, you don't have a rope. And there's people that do that. And I've just never associated myself with that individual to buy a $10 million building. I go, you know what, let me go with the team. Let's go with some experts. I'll take a guide. I want to get to the peak. I want to see the view, but I'm not a free climbing kind of risk kind of guy.
I've also noticed it at times where it's on the reverse, where people that have gone that route of doing a deal, if doesn't have to be a 100 or 200 door deal, but a smaller syndication, but then they end up investing passively after they've done that deal. So it's kind of taking your bet as well. You get to know the environment, you get to know the others involved in the business. And at times, obviously sponsors have income, and they also need to do something with their income, just like professionals do. And other syndications are also great investments. Also other alternative real estate asset investments are also great vehicles as well. Just quickly want to discuss with you about Texas. So Texas constantly comes up. I mean, obviously we've heard about Texas since we were kids in Western movies and what have you, but Texas seems to be the place that the exodus out of California, people are moving to Texas. Joe Rogan he's a big podcast fellow, very famous. He's literally moved his recording studio to Texas. You have Elon Musk moving to Texas with his factories in Texas. You have many other people moving to Texas because of.
We want to move to Texas.
We want to move to Texas. That's all.
Yeah, I love it.
We'll definitely be not fully moved there, but definitely have because all our investments are in the U.S. We want to have a place in the U.S. Also, possibly apply for the U.S. green cards in the future. So we want to have a home in the U.S. as well.
That's awesome.
But tell us about Texas. Other than obviously you're originally from Texas. You've also switched cities in Texas, if I heard on one of the podcasts earlier. So tell us about what is it about Texas? Why are people choosing Texas? Now, a couple of things I got to say is, country of Canada is a huge natural resources country, second largest country in the world, 40 million population. The state of Texas alone has a larger economy than the whole country of Canada. So that tells you about how much money exists in this state. So tell us, other than just the economics of it, and please touch on that as well. What is it about Texas that it's the great new place to be, and people are kind of flocking to the state?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many good things about Texas. So
I
love it.
Whataburger on your top 10 list. Whataburger. Oh, there you go.
There's my Whataburger cup. So why Whataburger? I'm like, yes. Why Texas? There's one of the reasons.
Awesome.
You have to go by if you check one out. So I'll tell you this. I'll start at just forget about real estate, economics, market part of it for a second. Sunny a lot of times. It's a little hot during the summer, but we don't have extreme cold. I'm thinking of Central to South Texas. Like it may snow every couple of like, I don't know, every 5 to 10 years it snows in San Antonio or South Texas, and it's not an everyday thing. It's not for a long period, and it barely stays on the ground. And it's warm, sunny. Like the climate is amazing, and there's they say Texas is a whole other country because within a couple hours you can go to the beach, couple coast. You can go to a nice natural lake. You can go, to the rolling prairies. You can like literally ride a horse. It's kind of funny. You can ride a horse. You can get your cowboy on, and then like you can go to the city like in a 45-minute drive, one or the other. So people have that perception. I loved it. Whenever somebody asks, "Hey, what's up in Texas? You ride your horse to school and stuff like that." I'm like, well, I didn't, but I know some friends that did. And so it can happen that way, right? But the economic part of it, the market factors, the population, we've had a consistent population growth year over year trend to Texas. And if you look at like the underwriting, some investments, multifamily specifically, or commercial real estate in multifamily, I'm looking for the largest population growth, because what happens is with more renters, that means you have higher demand, and where there's higher demand and a lower supply, well, prices go up. And that's what I want to be on. I want to be in the high demand side and have a product that delivers. So that's really what's happening every year. What drives population? Typically what drives population is like job growth. So the more jobs that are there in a, either market, submarket, city, neighborhood, whatever, you're going to have more population growth. People come find jobs. The cost of living is lower than some of our, some of the east and west urban core cities. So my first house was $116,000. It was a 1,600 square foot house. So nice, modest, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, but it was 116 grand. And I put down like $3,000 to buy it. So it was a nice house. It was like less than 8-9 years old. So it was nice, new. And, this was an amazing piece of real estate that, $116,000 somewhere else would be like, get you that rundown shack out the back. I was like, no, I had a nice new house. So, now that the real estate is very favorable, it's a lower average median price for that house, even in some of the bigger cities. Well, I'm in San Antonio now, probably average, I don't even know the average house cost, but it's probably mid 2s. Austin is high 3s, and Dallas is probably the same, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, those median house prices are still very affordable for a lot of people. Their dollar goes very far. We're becoming a big tech hub. I just saw something that, a report that said Dallas DFW is like out Silicon Valley. It's become a better known tech hub than Silicon Valley. And then also it's like, more desirable than Manhattan, which was the #1 rated investment spot. And I swim in the central to South Texas area. So San Antonio is the majority of the 800 doors that we're in. We just pulled the trigger on a McAllen property, so 3.5 hours south of San Antonio.
I've been to McAllen.
Okay, yeah, the Rio Grande Valley.
The Rio Grande.
They call it
Yeah.
RGV for short. If you don't know Texas, Rio Grande Valley, and you're like supported by the South Texas part, which is crazy. So NAFTA, the old NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement with our countries, which is awesome, is now the US Mexico Canada Agreement, so USMCA, and that literally defines the trade between us, US, Mexico, and Canada. And there's like $300 billion going this way, $200 billion going that way, and another $150 billion going in all 3 directions. And it kind of meets at our border, Texas, Mexico, Canada, in the south area. So when it comes to that, all that trade goes through South Texas, and that's where Rio Grande Valley. So those market mechanics may be different. It's not a primary city. It's not a secondary. It's like a tertiary market. But why does it work? Because we know the city's not going anywhere. On all the little bitty cities are not going anywhere because it's supported by billions of dollars of trade that happens in between there. So you've got really great tech hubs. you've got supported by these big international agreements, trade agreements. You've got a good cost of living. The real estate, you can buy a lot of it for, lower dollar than some of the other cities, and your money just, it just goes, right? And we've had, like in San Antonio, I'll talk about specifically, it's the growth is not, there's been no huge spike over 20 years. I don't think the growth has ever been over 2 to 3% in appreciation growth for real estate. And I don't think it's ever dropped below like 1 or 2. It's been a consistent number, just slow, little bitty rise, but every single year consistent and like clockwork. So, during the 2008 Great Recession, we didn't see a dip in values. We just saw less growth. And instead of 2%, it went to 1% or nothing. It just didn't have the drop. And then when it came back, it went back up to 2, and it's just been trucking along. And so that's typically, Texas, all those, and then the landlord rights, like our favorable political, I don't know, whatever you call it, the laws that are in place to protect landlords as opposed to renters. They're more fair than like a California or New York or Seattle, Washington, places
or
like
Vancouver.
that.
Yeah.
Or Vancouver. Vancouver is the same.
Yes. No, that's great. No, great points. Now, Texas is also very well known for energy, obviously for oil and natural gas. I also believe is not. Now, you mentioned as far as South Texas, it's got that trade component. So the billions of dollars of trade going back and forth between Mexico and the U.S. So has this slowdown in the oil market affected you? Or are you kind of vigilant of where you guys invest to make sure that you take that into account?
Yeah, there's a couple cities that are specific on oil, and those spots are very much boom and bust. Oil town, when oil's being pumped out of the ground, it's boom. And then if the oil is harder, the price is low, there's less being pulled out of the ground, it makes less sense to do the work to pull it and then refine it. Those are the bust times. I don't really invest in any of the boom or bust areas, which is good. But yes, it affects like the economy. There's a pipeline that they're building, and it is from Corpus Christi, Texas, a port of Corpus, literally pipeline, huge, however many feet by thousands or millions of miles or whatever it is. It's probably thousands of miles from shoot, I forget the city, but you can look it up. The pipeline for oil from one boom oil town all the way down to the port of Corpus Christi, so that it can be an easier export for oil in Texas. So when times are tough, oil prices are low, less, oil's being pulled out. And so they kind of go sleepy. And then all of a sudden, prices are back up and everyone flushes to those. Those towns are, Midland, Odessa, Permian, and then some of the other places, Carrizo Springs, is some of those. So I don't invest there. I probably know some people that invest like heavily when it's time. And it's just like they say, when the sun shines, it's time to make hay. They make hay, and then they're like, okay, I got to go. And that's part of their boom and bust. They kind of play those rides and they know it's going to come. Yeah. But tech, healthcare, for those big industry levers, tech, healthcare, and a lot of service industry and tourism in the cities as well.
Got it. No, awesome points. So if you like, we can.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Abel, if you could please explain to our viewers what classes in multifamily define. So there's Class A, Class B, Class C.
Okay, I got a good picture behind me.
We're gonna put you on the spot.
Yeah. So look at if you guys can see video, some of you guys can't. This is actually a Class A building. So we'll talk about Class A, just newer vintage age product, multifamily product. So it could be considered A, if it's 5, 10, 15 years old, maybe it's luxury. There's probably a luxury, then there's A. If I'm getting to a B type of property, I'm adding some age to it. It's 20 or 30 years to you. Class C, you're going to be in 1970s vintage. You're getting 30, 40 years. A D is typically like you're in a rougher neighborhood, probably some areas, with, poverty, crime rate, lower schools. So first age, right? So 5 to 10 years, maybe 10 to 20 years. B, 20 to 30 years, you're getting the C. 30 to 40, you could be aging. It's literally an age. Also, there's the difference between A, B, C, and D is, well, when they built them, 30, 40 years ago, they may have flat roofs, which are typically harder to maintain. You got to fix them more often versus a pitched roof. Pitched roof, it shingles and the water's going to flow, and roof's a lot easier to maintain. You also have like neighborhood or demographics that will affect it. Yeah, I may have a quote unquote C property, 1970s property with maybe flat roofs. It has maybe some brick on the outside and it's decent. It looks okay, but it might be in a B neighborhood. So that B neighborhood, better market mechanics or market demographics, higher average income, higher population, good for job growth in the immediate area. And that market may have a great school system. It's a highly desirable neighborhood, B neighborhood, nice houses, but you've got this apartment complex in the middle. It could be like a C property, but in a B neighborhood. And so, it's kind of like a marketing term too. I could say, oh, I've got a Class A, and it's really like a 1980 property, that's kind of old, but we just did the interiors. And so some people may say that's not an A, that's like a B, maybe. And so there's not really a it's not a hardcore definition that says this is A, this is B, this is C. But at the same time, there are literal things that you're looking for. They go, nah, this is a C property, and I don't want to overpay for a C property. Maybe you overpay for a B or C property in an A neighborhood. Then you're like, I'm willing to pay a little bit more. It is a lower class, but the property itself, some people say I repositioned it from a C to a B. And I did so by doing interior unit renovations, the parking lot, the outside, the exterior, the CapEx improvements, the roof, the HVAC, and it just looks more appealing when I walk in, the area, the front leasing office to my units, and I'm in a great neighborhood. So that's kind of a little bit of the classes. Hopefully that helps a little bit.
No, that was very extensive.
Boilers and chillers is another thing. Does it have like huge boilers? Like it heats the water for everything. Chillers for AC for everything. Or do I have my own individual HVACs or own individual water heaters? Makes a big difference too, especially on the older properties.
Yes, and in this game of apartment syndication, apartment syndicators like us, it's the the apartment syndication blueprint 101 is this concept of value add, is taking a property, obviously hoping for the appreciation of the market. So your investors' capital, your own capital is in something that's gaining value, is not being depreciated like the currency, and then you add value to it by doing certain renovations, and that concept of C-class asset being in a B-class neighborhood allows that value add process to work the best, because you can bring up that asset. So if you had an asset in a C-class neighborhood and you brought it to a B-class asset, you brought it over that neighborhood, you couldn't be charging those rents. Whereas if you got a C-class asset in a B-class neighborhood, you do the renovations that are needed, then you can ask for the rents that are the B-class neighborhood rents. That's also another part of this class structure.
Yeah, I agree 100%. When you're looking at your comps, you're trying to see, hey, are there any other newer properties? Vintage is younger, they're nicer, they're newer, they have better amenities. Oh, another thing on classes like Class A, Class C or D property may not have a pool or a workout center. B and an A, you're like, hey, where's the pool? Where's the workout facility, right?
It's a dead giveaway when they don't have that one like this.
You're like, okay, this is where I'm living. So that also tells you that. But to your point, if I see a B property that's in my same 1 mile, 2 mile radius, and theirs is a little younger and theirs is nicer, but we have the same amenities. If I look to the interior and say, man, the property that I'm considering buying is a C, it's older, it's got 10 years, but they haven't done the carpet, simple things like carpet or floor, the fixtures, the countertops, the toilets, tubs, and they haven't done those at all. They're quote unquote classic, Those are the old units, and you just get lucky and find some owner that hasn't done anything for 20 years. Then you can look to the interior and go, man, if we make our interior like this Class B property interior, and you do vinyl plank flooring, you do the resurfaced countertop, fixtures, toilets, everything that should be shiny, two-tone paint on the interior. Now you say, man, these guys were charging $600 for this old junky apartments. Like, I don't even feel comfortable with them, friends or family living there. And then I pushed it up, and then now it looks nice. And they're like, yeah, I could see, referring it to my cousin or my mom, or yeah, if she needed to live there, I feel comfortable with that. Put up some fence, lighting, better security. You're not going to change the market. The market is the market, the sub-market in the neighborhood, but you can change the community a bit, safer, cleaner. And if you're still affordable, now I know I'm $100 less than the B, but that just means I can raise my rent $150, which is like, when you do the math on this, it's insane if you get to $100. I don't know if we want to talk about numbers for a minute, but I can go on a tangent for a second.
Yeah, the numbers are their own kind of, especially the economy of scale when it comes to multifamily. That's one of the reasons us investors kind of love the multifamily kind of 100 unit plus for that economy of scale. So we can touch on that, but quickly before that, the point you brought up, when you brought up family and friends, where you feel comfortable renovating something and for your own family or friends to live in those apartments and units. This shows the business where I made one of the reasons that I fell in love with apartment syndication and multifamily was, in business, it seems like there's always somebody that loses. There's always a loser involved in business. Either you got a great deal or you're buying something, creating something. But with this concept of apartment syndication, it's a win-win-win situation, because you're creating jobs, you're taking something that's old, you're bettering it, you're creating a better community for your tenants, for people living there. So that's the thing that I really love about this, the concept. Even when you do full-on development, where my background was, there is like people that that neighbors, they say, they're complaining about construction, they're complaining about their neighborhood changing or what have you. With these with apartment syndication, I haven't been able to find a complaint when it comes to this concept. So another reason that I'm in love with it. But if Abel, if you like, just on a quick high level, kind of explain the process of upping rents always sounds like shoddy landlords where they're rapacious and they increase rents. But explain how this process works, where when syndicators get involved with purchase an asset, there's units that are vacant. And most times they start with upgrading those units, putting it back on the market. And as the other units and that's why the process is 3 to 5 years in average. Discuss that process with us, if you may, please.
Yeah. So let's, it kind of starts in your underwriting, and it starts at the property that you're looking at. And the property that you're looking at, you're saying, okay, there's 100, let's use the example, there's 100 units, and those 100 units are charging $600 in rents. And I look around and I look at the comps, and I look and see, oh, the other guys, the nicer property potentially are charging $800, $200 premium, but the neighborhood is pretty good. The average median income, let's just say it's like, $65,000 average median income, right? So if I know it's 65 grand average median income, then I know typically that 20 to 30% of that, if I want to be conservative, 20%, if I'm saying, I think most people spend 30% on their housing, then you're taking that, 65K and saying, multiply that by 30%, that brings you with $19,500 divided by 12. And that average median income can afford $1,600 a month in rent. All right. So people make good money in this neighborhood. There's probably, they live in probably, the housing in the area, like literal single family houses. But if I had to say, okay, this is a pretty good area, then I'm not charging $1,600 a rent. This apartment that I'm looking at is 6. The comps are saying 8. So can I reasonably do something to this property, a value add that would bring my rents up $100 and win? And if I say on these 100 units, I'm saying let's yes, all of these are classic, which is really what we want, is an ideal. I'm painting an ideal scenario to buy, but if I found 100 units that have never been touched for like 10, 15 years, they're old, they're dingy, they're dirty, they're old. You need to renew the whole interior. So that might be $5,000 a door. That'll get you new, it's very simple. It's kind of boring in our area, but new floor, new countertops, maybe paint the cabinets, put some cabinet pulls on them, sink, tub, fixtures, toilet, 5,000 bucks goes pretty quickly, but it's like a brand new, nice apartment, two-tone paint. And you're like, woo, this is nice. So if I spend $5,000, sorry, per door on 100 doors, that's 500K, right?
Yes.
So I bought the property and I'm going to put 500K into it. So there's an expense that we have to try to raise, capital raise in advance. That's what I recommend syndicators do. Don't try to do these improvements off your cash flow. Raise the capital beforehand with all the investors. That's part of it. We put it down and we just have our plan to go renovate them. That may take, you mentioned there's 3 empty units, 5 empty units, 10 empty units. The more, the better for this value add, because the more that I can do right off the bat, boom, 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 I do them all. Now I've got a new product that I would offer my existing tenants first. Hey, do you want to move into this new, beautiful, redone, remodeled, come to the model. Your place is old, dingy, and I know it. I'm sorry. That's the old owner. We're the new owners. It's beautiful. And it's only going to be an extra 75, $100. Let's just say $100 a month. And if they say yes, again, average median income in the area is high, meaning they have enough extra surplus cash where they would say, man, for $1,200 a year, $100 a month, I get a brand new, beautiful place. I'm in.
Yeah.
And those are the ones we want them to move in first, so that we can have their units to renovate. So that would be kind of the first goal. Get as many of those rented to existing renters as possible, so we can get their units to kind of redo and kind of keep positioning. When renters' leases come up, we're also going to offer them the same. We'd like you to move to the new one. We're upping your rent. Nobody likes to hear that, but you're going to go to a nice, beautiful new spot. Okay, I'm in. If they say no, then we're going to say, well, we're upping the rent anyways. So what would you prefer? Is it time to move for you, or do you want to move into this new one? And so you're kind of having this juggle, this play, and you're doing a few units every month until the whole thing is done. But now when we get back into the numbers part of it, right? $100 is huge. And most people don't, realize how big $100 means on 100 units. Because if I did 100 units times an extra $100, that's $10,000 extra cash flow every month that the property creates. So 10,000 times 12 months is $120,000 of net operating income. It's brand new, it's profit, it hits the books, and I say 120K. That also, unless I was doing the underwriting, it didn't seem like a big number. I was like, yeah, my single family property, in Texas was 116K. That's not a lot of money, but that's not the way these are evaluated. We generate $120,000 of net new operating income. And if you want to find the value of that, you divide by the going cap rate in your market. So your cap rate is probably different in Vancouver and Canada is different than mine, but mine may be a 5.5 cap rate. Okay. 120.
We're at 2% over here.
That's some expensive real estate over there. California is probably like in the 3s or something. Texas, we're in the 5, and I guess depends on asset classes. You can go to 4 in Austin to 5.5 to 6 in San Antonio, Texas. But let's just say 5.5 is what I'm kind of used to dealing with. So 120K, I divide by the cap rate, divided by 0.055, which is 5.5 cap rate. You've generated $2.18 million of valuation on that property. Now, don't forget the 500K that we spent. We spent 500K a door at 100. So I have to subtract $500,000 from that, but that still leaves me with $1.6 million of new valuation. So I spend 5 and I get $1.6 million.
Incredible.
that's the value add. That's the whole thing just kind of summarized.
So this, what Abel just said is not his opinion. If a bank was going to assess your property, they would look at the cap rate, they would look at your net operating income, and they'll evaluate what your property is worth through that calculation. So we're not creating numbers here or making assumptions or guesses. We're going by how these financial institutions assess the price for property, and we're using the same math to figure out how we can increase value, and how can $100 increase in rent cause such a increase in value of the property. So, sorry, I'm just going to go back to this thing here. So that was a great point. I really appreciate you explaining that. We'll make sure to have a snippet of this video so we can post it on our social media platforms.
And I just want to end with one more question here.
You want to end already?
No,
he has to go. I'm having so much.
I have time. So whenever you're
so much fun with Abel. So
you guys could talk all day. I love it. I was watching you speak in another interview, and you were so excited about how your money's working for you as you sleep. Okay, so I would like for you to share with our viewers how you created this strong mindset of the importance of having your money work for you. And of course, you've already shared kind of how you got there.
As passive, I guess this is more on the passive side.
Going back to you being a passive.
Yeah, because as an active, I think there is some sleepless nights. If you're putting, we put in we recently put in an LOI in San Antonio on a project there. So we can discuss that in a bit. But so as active investors, we do have sleepless nights. But as a passive investor, how does your money work for you while you're asleep? So that's a great question, great point you brought up, Eva.
I like that.
So, there's that quote that I like go back to that kind of gets me going, and it's a Warren Buffett quote. So if you don't know who Warren Buffett is, you go Google him, right? He says, if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you're going to work till you die. And, my parents, I don't come from money. I don't have, no one's the millionaire net worth in my family, probably maybe in my family tree, maybe somewhere along the lines, but that was not the way I grew up. Never, I'm just middle class at best, what you could kind of qualify, but my parents are still working and they're in their 70s. My mom and dad go to work every day. And I'm hoping, God willing, that they can retire soon, but they didn't know how to create passive income. Never taught it to me. I never learned it because they didn't know, not because they were being selfish. They're still working. And I looked at that and I go, man, if I don't figure out a way to create income while I'm sleeping, I'm going to find myself in the same situation, and my children will be there in the same way too. So that was kind of that was the impetus. That was the motivation to say, I got to figure this thing out. Back in 2008, when I first read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it was like, God, I got to figure this thing out. So that was, kind of the quest for it. And I look at passive income today, and my first plan, I think we talked about earlier, I looked at $50,000 amount. That's usually the minimum mark as a passive investor. I looked at it as a seed, and my goal was to plant as many seeds as I possibly could, and just grind out in my active day job, my active pursuit of capital. It was very active. I go to work every single day. I grind. Even my active work as a multifamily syndicator, it's active. If I don't do it, I don't create it. But I create this active capital, and as quickly as I can, I put it into a passive investment. If I get 50K, I'm squirreling it away. I'm putting it away. Every time I get 50K, I'm putting it away. And I did that for 10 years in single family. I did 25 or 30K at a time. Now that I can make a little more money, 50K at a time, and putting it in front of me, because I'm literally like laying the tracks for my retirement. The more seeds that I plant, if it's a 50K seed today, in 5 years, it'll be 100. In 10 years, it'll be 200. And 15 years, it'll be 4. And we talked about this. And, and I want those 50K seeds to turn into 400 or 800K trees, where at the end of my time, whenever that is, I'm 41 today. My wife's a little younger. She's like 36-ish, I think. I'm giving away her age. I shouldn't have said that. But anyways, we're in that 40 years age, and I go, well, I still have to work every day. Like I'm not retired by any means. I grind every single day. You see me on LinkedIn and you see all this stuff. I grind. However, I feel like I'm putting active seeds together, putting them in front of me to get passive trees later. The more seeds that I can plant, the more trees that are going to provide me cash flow at the end. And the more my net worth grows, the more my passive investment cash flow comes without me having to work. So that in 10, 15, 20 years from now, I'm just doing deals because I want to. I do have a lot of passion. I don't think I'm ever going to like retire, but shoot, I'd sure like the idea of me taking off 2 or 3 or 4 months to go travel anywhere around the world if I want to. And, definitely not there now, but that's like motivation for the future.
Amazing. That was probably one of the best explanations of passive investing that I've ever heard. So I gotta appreciate that, and hope our viewers can also take a lot of wisdom away from that explanation. So we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
We're getting closer to the end. Sadly enough, I feel sad, but is there? Oh yeah, maybe, do you want to maybe? Abel has mentioned his.
Yeah, he mentioned his wife a lot, being involved in the business.
Is your wife involved in your business, Abel, and kind of what capacity is that, and how does it feel having a spouse kind of be involved in business and what have you?
She's like our COO. When I was full-time W-2, she was the real estate professional. So she held her own, that's for sure.
Is the CEO of any marriage, right? So that's just
like, baby, where are we going? What are we doing? Yes, how are we getting there? Yeah, she's the operations officer, absolutely. And really from a strategy perspective, like she hears everything we're doing. She, may not be at the delivery of, or the execution of, or raising capital. Actually, she helps me with capital raising conversations. Husband and wife want to talk about a discussion, like my wife will jump on and I'll offer that to husband. So husbands, if you're listening and you want to jump into investment, like make sure your wife's involved. And for me, like for my investors, if somebody wants to have a conversation with her one-on-one or with me or us together, like she can have those conversations. She's excited about it too. So she can share from her perspective. But the day-to-day involvement, like, she's like the strategy. Hey, this is the team that reached out to me. This is the market. This is their deal. They want me to partner. They want to work together. Should we go to, do deals? Well, where do you know them? What's their track record? Why do you want to work with them? Tell me about the deal. Tell me about the market. Like, so I'm explaining all this stuff to her and she's like, I think we should move forward. Here, let me see some pictures. Okay, great. Let's move forward. Or, no, I don't know. You're kind of stretching yourself. There's too many things going on. X, Y, and Z is happening. Or what's 2 or 3 steps down the road? Why are you making this play now? And so that strategy is super important for me. I'm like I'm a laser focused. Here's the end run. Here's the goal. Forget about all the stuff, either side of me. Like, let's go. And she's very much asking me, are you headed in the right direction?
Beautiful.
So this is awesome.
Amazing. Yeah, just to close with a couple of questions that we ask all our guests who come and speak. It's about an advice. I guess this whole webinar has been on advice of, most of it about the passive investor, but what would be your advice to a passive investor looking to either start passively investing in apartment syndications or who are currently involved?
Yeah. Just straight 100% passive, right?
Yes.
I would say your job.
The next question is going to be about the active, but please go ahead.
Your job as a passive investor is to do due diligence on 3 things. And your job is to vet the market, the team, and the deal. And if you get really good at vetting the market, the team, and the deal, you will absolutely minimize your risk a lot more than even a single family house that you think you have control over. Like, you have no control over a limited partner passive deal, 0 control. That's literally why the syndication SEC, at least, here, SEC created a passive role where we can invest some money, but you don't have any say in, the fixtures, the plan, the sell, the exit, the buy, none of that stuff. So if you get good at vetting market, team, and your deal, then you can minimize your risk because you can choose the best operators in the best markets with the best deals and kind of know by default, you did the work up front. That was all that's required of you. Once you pull the trigger and invest, you can sleep well at night and watch the checks roll in, kind of a monthly or quarterly basis. Amazing. That would be my advice.
No, that's great advice. Great advice if you want. Yeah. So just one item to talk about that is, Abel, just listening to you speak, you always hear stories about people going from 8 doors to 800 doors, and it's incredible. But when I speak to you and I hear how genuine you are, and the stories and your mindset about the thought, and the brick by brick how you built your empire, I really appreciate it. And it's that personality that adds a lot. People wanting to partner with you, wanting to be involved in your deals, and that's incredible. So I really enjoyed and love hearing. So if you want to, Abel, you want to ask the
second question?
The second question
Sure.
about becoming an active syndicator and yeah.
Don't be asking
Sorry.
Don't be asking my question for me. What advice would you give to someone looking to start becoming an active investor?
So it's funny because I give the advice that I know because this is what I did. So the reason I was able to go so quickly was because I invested passively first. And I got really good at vetting the deal, the team, the market. And the better that I got at that, I realized I got better at finding my own active deals, or when people asked me to partner with them, or when I was looking at new teams, I did the same thing. I vetted the deal if they had one. If not, I vetted their markets they were investing and their track record and their experience. And the more that I felt comfortable about them, it was easier for me to say, you know, we should go do deals together. So when they asked me, I laid that groundwork in advance as a passive investor, which I highly recommend all the passive investors also do. You do your due diligence now, today, even though you're not investing today. You may be investing 6 months from now, a year from now. You're trying to save up your 50K. Do that now, because when a deal comes out in 3 months, you want to be able to pull the trigger immediately. We did a deal where we raised $3 million and it got raised in about 12 to 18 hours. It was crazy. Wow. And we've done other deals where it took us like 45 days to raise 2 million. So it just kind of depends like on how fast it goes. The worst place you could be in though is it be in a spot where you're trying to do due diligence, market team and the deal. And like you see the OM, you see it come to your email and you guys met last week. And then you're like trying to determine whether or not you should invest 50K. And it's so stressful. It's already stressful enough. Don't put yourself under the gun. Do it now. So that way, when something comes up in the future, you can say, oh yeah, I already did my due diligence on these guys. I like their market. I like their team. I'm just going to do due diligence on the deal. That same information helped me get so many active deals so quickly because I had already laid the groundwork. And like there's a bunch of free sources of information too. As an active partner, you're trying to figure out how to do it. Be really good at passive investing and helping people passively invest. And one of the best ways to do it is do it yourself, because if you can do it yourself, now you can help other people do it. And now you're a capital raiser. It's just helping people, kind of like how I did it. And so I invested passively. Then I was a small percentage partner on my first deal. So I got my card punched. And then, on the second one, I got a little bit more. Second one, I get a little bit more. Third one, I get a little bit more. And all of a sudden now, like I'm on deal number 7 and I have a track record. So I was not about taking the big piece of the pie. I didn't really care about, really how much I made as an active partner. I was like, I just want to get a deal done. Right. If there's any realtors in the room, something that helped me with my mindset, they said, if you've never listed $1 million property as a realtor, single family realtor, then you're not going to get a $1 million listing. But the moment you've done 1, 2, or 3, you're probably going to get a 4th, 5th, and 6th. So the first one, give it away for free. Don't take any commission on it. Second one, break even. Just charge enough to kind of cover your cost. The third one, you do it at half cost or third cost, whatever. The fourth one, you charge full price. And now you're $1 million realtor lister. So I kind of applied that to my multifamily world and said, I should probably do the same. Just give it away. I don't care what it is. Take a little. Now I've got a track record.
Very well said. Very well said. Yeah. Abel, we'd love to have you on again at some point to talk about more on the nurturing side of the investors and the value add component, and possibly talk about a deal that you're currently involved in or you've currently closed on. I can't wait for that. And hey, man, we really appreciate you coming on. Learned a lot from you.
You're awesome.
Can't wait to see you again.
Can't wait to see you growing 2021. We'll be seeing a lot of you on Facebook or LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And for y'all's listeners, I wrote an ebook this year. So during COVID time, kind of put some pen to paper, and you'll have to forgive me because I'm definitely not a trained author by any means, but I kind of put a lot of these thought processes into a book. So if you go to our website, 5tcre.com/ebook, you can find, I've got it there. You can download it, check it out. And then I love the process of like giving back, helping others, serving people. There's no way to have like 1,000 conversations with everyone and still get my own work done. So we started a podcast also, 5 Talents Podcast, and that's published out there, and go check it out. And, love to have anybody there in that network.
Amazing.
Incredible.
I've added your website and your LinkedIn page as well to the group message to everyone.
I wanted to ask a question for Abel. Can I ask?
Sure.
Yeah, is it open? Oh, I'm sorry, because you didn't open it for, thank you, Abel. Yeah, I joined you. It's a situation where a Canadian is going to get married to a US citizen. Okay? She lives in the US. It also involves your multifamily syndication. And she happens to be in Texas. Now, one thing is the southern part of Texas, New Orleans to Galveston to Houston. Okay? Starts from Louisiana. Basically, it's a polluted area because of the oil terminals. If you go historically, New Orleans and therefore to go a little north, middle of Texas is probably better. So I was told like Austin is very reasonable, of course, despite being the capital. And then there are places outside Dallas, which is also good. Okay, now my main question is, let's say the arrangement is the husband brings the money, and the property will be bought in 2 names, but the US citizen is the first name, the Canadian citizen remains a citizen, and therefore to this will be a foreign citizen. So what will apply? Let's say that we go for a mortgage. They go for a mortgage. So like the husband's income will also be seen, though he's not a US national. And the first name will be kept as a local US citizen, and she's the spouse. So Abel, can you expound on that? Say you buy a 400,000 house, okay? And the husband brings in 300,000 US dollars. Yeah, okay.
I do have some insight, but I think I can steer you at least in one direction. So I am connected to an amazing CPA that has really some good insight on this, your exact question. I think we were chatting about it like 3 or 4 days ago, and he was laying out the taxes from one country to the second country, and the taxes, like wherever you're at in the first country, US is going to take their taxes, and then the remainder, we've got some kind of agreement between all the international companies where international entities where they take the remainder of the tax, like whatever else they didn't hit you with. So you're not paying double taxes. And I'm not a CPA, I'm not a professional, but my advice is talk to a professional, talk to a CPA, somebody that can actually help you in that, because everybody's situation is different. And your question is so specific. You want somebody who really knows your situation well, and they'll guide you through the difference between a syndication investment or single family investment, or your citizenship, her citizenship, whose name is it going to go under, and probably implications on saving taxes if you go one route versus another.
Abel, I was talking about the mortgage. Let's say you buy a 400,000 house, the husband brings in 300,000 US. And can she apply for the $100,000 loan? Will the US local bank in Houston or in Dallas or Austin ask those questions? Because the joint owner of that property is going to be a Canadian citizen. I'm not looking at the taxes yet, but in terms of funding it and financing it, let's say, you know what? Will there be any questions asked by the institution?
I think probably the best question for a mortgage broker, our friend. We're having a mortgage broker and also a cross-border accountant coming on to the show. So stay in touch with us. You have Abel's information. We don't want to disturb everybody else here. We really appreciate it. If you have any other questions, please type it in the Q&A box on the bottom here. We'll ask it from Abel, but I haven't seen any questions through this time. So Abel, I'm sure everybody can reach out to you. Your information has been provided. We really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Abel, you're awesome. Thank you so much, and keep killing it.
All right, thank you very much. Pleasure. Thank you all.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.